How are you doing, everybody? Welcome back to the Shaun Attwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson, and I've been joined here by a very special guest, Professor Jiang, or PJ, as he's mercifully allowed me to call him. And we're going to be diving into secret societies and this overlying sort of tone that's come to the surface for years, but seems so prevalent this year, is their want to end the world as we know it. Now, does that mean destroy the ball in space? I don't really think so, but it feels like there is an awakening that we are trying to be misdirected from, or having our mindset skewed so that we see these oppressors as a savior. Who knows, right? But we're going to touch on that today. And PG, thank you so much for being here. Please introduce yourself to us before we get started.
Yeah, so I'm PJ, Professor Jiang. I run a channel called Predictive History, in which I make geopolitical forecasts about the future. And I usually do historical analysis. So I look at major events in history and I try to apply their relevance to today. But recently, I've become very interested in eschatology and secret societies. And so this is a new topic to me, and I think it's really relevant to what's happening today, especially the war in the Middle East. And so I'm really excited to be here to go deeper into this topic.
I'm excited too, and I think what we'll let's sort of just have a little conversation for the start of this. Let's sort of just discuss a little bit about the sort of more known secret societies to sort of set the stage. Obviously, we've got the Freemasons, which is, I think, the Freemasons and the Illuminati are the ones that spring to people's mind the most. But we were just chatting before we started about Scientology and the sort of more modern sides of it all. And when you sort of started this topic and you peered into Scientology, what was your first reaction from the religion when you seen it in its format?
Yeah, so I first became interested in Scientology because Lawrence Wright, who is a New Yorker journalist, he wrote a very good book about Scientology. And when you read the book, there are so many mysteries about Scientology, and it doesn't really make sense. So one major mystery is, for a decade, Scientology took on the IRS, the federal government. They took on the federal government, and they inserted spies into the IRS. They harassed IRS officials, and eventually they won out. Now, I don't know how that's possible. I don't know how it's possible for a alternative religion to take on the federal government and to win out. And the book doesn't really explain, but after doing some more research, you sort of recognize that Scientology is very much affiliated with the CIA. And Scientology does the work of the CIA overseas. And this goes back to Aleister Crowley, right, of OTO. What these intelligence agents have discovered is that these sort of occult organizations are very good at infiltrating local elites, at infiltrating and subverting local elites, blackmailing them, brainwashing them, turning into double agents. And so Scientology has served a really useful purpose. But one thing I've also discovered in my search is that these secret societies, these occult organizations, intelligence organizations, mafia organizations, they're all interrelated. If you draw a Venn diagram of these organizations, you'll find many interlocking circles.
Do you think that's by design, because it's easier to be an unknown, unseen cabal, just for lack of better terms, that runs everything, and it's easier to have 50 or 60 little things that could be discovered so it doesn't take down the whole deck of cards, if that makes sense? Do you think that could be what we're looking at?
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that, the mafia, these occult organizations, secret societies, intelligence agencies, they're all different branches of power, right? They're all looking to amass more power, but they do so through different means, through different mechanisms, and that's why they work really well together. So
yeah. And the Freemasons, that's the one that we all kind of know of, and the Freemasons were founded for sort of different reasons than they exist now. It was about freedom of movement between closed kingdoms for these master crafters who, in our modern era, we look outside at houses and how they're built and everything like that. It's the concept of building these enormous structures with no mortar. There's no metaphorical glue to stick the buildings together. It's all done with these keystones. And it was about that free travel, and it just sort of expanded into what we see now. And the corruptibility of the format of Masons, I think, is what has led to so many of these conspiracies, because there is evildoers in the world. And the way that the Freemasons set up new lodges, it's very easy for evil to gather friends of like-minded evilness over a few years, and then you get to a certain point where you can create a lodge. And if that lodge is founded with evil intentions, it's going to, in the same way as a pub, right, or the local cafe, if it's founded by evildoers, there's probably going to be evil there. But when it comes to secret societies, I think everyone is always going to have that element of mistrust regardless. And what's your take with Freemasonry? I mean, I think it's a good starting point for us.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I agree. I think most people agree that Freemasons started off as a professional guild, right? These are professionals who are adept at their craft, and they wanted to create this transnational organization. At first, and I think for most people, the Freemasons are a very good cause. The problem, though, is that whenever you have a transnational organization, powerful individuals see it as opportunity to conduct spying operations, to conduct subversion, to conduct revolutions. And so over time, Freemasonry became almost like a branch of the British intelligence service, right? And what I believe is that over time, certain philosophers, so Newton and Milton, are two of the top philosophers, in my opinion. Their philosophy sort of became imbued into Freemasonry, especially at the very top. Because what's really important for us to understand is that these secret societies are powerful because they're compartmentalized. So there are 33 degrees to Scottish Rite Freemasonry. There's probably more degrees, but 33 are the ones we know about. And so all knowledge is compartmentalized. So if you're at the bottom ring, the way you understand Freemasonry is going to be very different from people at the top. Remember, like organizations, people that are at the top are first and foremost interested in extending the power of the organization. And that often means going to bed with organized crime, with the nation state, with intelligence services, with anyone who can expand your influence and power. And so I think over time, all organizations become corrupt, especially if they're transnational, and especially if intelligence services see a benefit or advantages to working with you.
Yeah, and it's that allure to the elites. It's that unobtainable thing that money can't buy to be part of these societies as well. And with the founding of America, right? And when you were talking about Freemasonry becoming part of the intelligence service for the UK, it's so plausible that we could be discussing the birth of blackmail controls the world at this point, because news traveled a lot slower back then. You know, it's not as quickly as it does now. And you wonder just how many decisions from that period were founded based off of not so much false pretenses, but someone having their arm twisted. Because we've seen in recent years with Diddy and with Epstein, the level of deniability when it comes to the existence of blackmail material. What's your take on the sort of covert missions in the early stages of the Freemasons? Do you think they had a hand in the shaping of America? And do you think the evildoers seen that as a way of populating a new nation in their evil doers sort of mindset?
Look, I mean, like American historians don't discuss the fact that Freemasons were fundamental in the founding of America. A third of all American presidents were Freemasons, and they're very proud of that fact. You know, Benjamin Franklin was a very proud member of Freemasonry. He wrote an autobiography talking about how beneficial Freemasonry is, and he said that it was a debate club, right? It was a place where you came together with other leading intellectuals, the most privileged members of your society, and you had rigorous debates about everything, about philosophy, about life, about spirituality. And for him, it was an extremely transformative experience. And so they don't discuss the fact that Freemasonry was at the foundation of the building of America. You go to Washington, D.C., all those monuments, all those, even the design of the city. I mean, it's based on Freemason principles.
Yeah.
So where Freemasonry and America overlap is in deism. Okay, so deism is a religion that believes that God created the universe, but then God went away, and the universe runs like a clock. And so it is up to humanity, specifically Freemasons, to do God's work and create a perfect world.
Okay.
And so humans are programmable and the world is perfectible. And so humans, especially Freemasons, have the capacity to be like God and create a perfect world. And that's their mission on Earth. So that's the philosophy underlying Freemasonry, and it's also the philosophy underlying America, right? And so there's tremendous convergence between Freemasonry and the American Republic. As to blackmail issue, I want to get this out of the way,
Okay.
because I think it's a very important concept to understand. Blackmail. Okay, what is it? Okay, so free secret societies have always been around. Okay, because secret societies, it's really a bunch of men swearing oaths together to accomplish a political goal together. Okay, so you go back to Teple, Kalahoyak, the Steppes people. Okay, they all had secret societies. The Vikings were secret societies. So secret societies have been with us all the time. The difference between today and previously is that before, people were religious. So if people came together and they had to swear loyalty to each other, they just swore to the gods, right? They made an oath to the gods that they would be bound together and they would fight together. And because people were God-fearing back then that's all you needed. You didn't have to do anything else, okay? But then with the Protestant Reformation, with the Enlightenment, with the Italian Revolution, God-fearing went away. And so now you have a problem, right? So how is it that when people come together, how can you trust other people? And the only solution in that instance is blackmail, right? Transgression. That's why you have Epstein Island, right? I mean, like, how else can you trust someone else? And also remember, the other thing is that these secret societies are in competition with each other. So you mentioned the Freemasons, but they're also the Jesuits. They're also the Serpentine Frankists. There's lots of different secret societies, right? And a lot of these individuals who are extremely powerful, they actually belong to different secret societies. So how do you ensure that that person who's very powerful is more loyal to you than to a competing secret society, like the Jesuits, right? Well, you do it through transgression. You make him do a taboo. You make him break a taboo that is so outrageous that he has to be loyal to you now. I mean, another word we can use is for blackmail, right? So there's almost like a blackmail arms race going on in the world, and that's why we see all these satanic rituals going on. You know, all this child abuse going on, because it solves a problem for secret societies, which is like, how do you engender trust and secrecy within your organization? And the only way to do that, because people no longer fear God, is through blackmail and transgression and breaking taboos and all sorts of outrageous activities.
Now, it's interesting because we mentioned the occult there, right? And of course, Benjamin Franklin, before he went to America, he was part of several other occult, clubs, the Hellfire Club and Aleister Crowley. The mystic side, okay, that adds another layer to these secret societies, right? I mean, you look at the average Freemason lodge, and I'm just using them as an example. It's a lot of old guys. You have a lot of people that work in the banking industry or the police or financing. And of course, if you've got a brother who wants to get into a lucrative job opportunity, you're going to give them the leg up. But that layer of mysticness that comes in, right? That has to be the ultimate allure for the elites that are on our level, PJ, like the ones that we can see, not the bloodlines, not the families that are not the 1%, the below that. That must be an allure, because that is non-obtainable, right? That is the gift.
That's correct.
That's the gift that you get for someone who's got everything, metaphorically speaking.
Look. Let's just say you're Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or Mark Zuckerberg or Jeff Bezos. Okay, you've got all the money in the world. You can't possibly spend this money. You have more money than most nation states have. Okay,
right?
But now you have a huge problem, which is eventually you're going to die, and then all your money is going to vanish. It's going to be meaningless to you, right? So what these people are most afraid of death. Okay, death frightens them because they don't want to lose their power. For them, the world we live in is the best world that you can possibly live in. So they don't want to die. Okay. So what they're going to do is they're going to figure out anything possible in order to reincarnate into their current position or to keep on living. Okay. And that's why you see the emergence of people like Brian Johnson. I'm not sure if you know who Brian Johnson is, this vampire who believes he can live forever by transfusing blood and maintaining a certain.
Is that the billionaire who's like is draining his own son? Is he the super rich guy?
Yeah, he's not a billionaire, but I mean, like, he spends $2 million a year on a certain regimen to prolong his life. Okay, but you have these billionaires investing a lot in immortality research, in expanding your life. Exactly, that's who he is. Okay, the guy literally looks like a vampire.
He does look a lot like a vampire.
And what you need to do is like Google him like 20 years ago, because he looked normal back then, and you just like and now he like literally looks like a vampire. He's pale. There's sort of like a sadistic nature to him. Okay, so that's what these billionaires are. They want to live forever, and they're going to use whatever resource that they have in order to obtain immortality. And that means funding, immortality research, genetic research. That means, like hiring Brian Johnson as a coach, as a life coach. But it also means, most importantly, joining secret societies, because from their perspective, the key is the secret societies, because this knowledge passed on from Egypt, from Babylon, from Rome, and so they must have secret knowledge. Okay, I'm not sure if they do, but they do believe that like this knowledge can be the ultimate source of longevity or reincarnation. Okay, and that's the appeal of these secret societies for these people. And when you have like these billionaires pumping money into you, then these secret societies are all powerful now.
Do you know what? As you were saying that, right, my little brain just had a little moment there. Is Scientology the first attempt at rebranding this with an actual monetized system? Because traditionally, there's not been a lot of. I imagine there is buying our way in, but that's still behind closed doors, right? Scientology being so open and public and about how much it costs for each of the levels that you go up and everything like that, that's not as prevalent in the history of other secret societies. It might be there, but it certainly isn't applicable to every single person. I'm sure there's members fees and all of that, but giving away all your worldly possessions and signing over your money to Scientology, I ain't heard any of those stories from any Freemasons I've talked to. Do you think there's a possibility that this was just a crazy attempt at a public society with secrets that they could just monetize? And I know that sounds ridiculous, but just think about, and I'm not so much to you, but to the side chat, think about all the psychology that PJ's explained to us about how people react to things. I mean, could that be the case?
Listen, I think this goes back all the way to ancient Egypt. And so let me explain the reasoning here, okay?
Please do.
Okay, so you're a high priest and you have your own occult organization, okay? So you've got certain problems. The first problem, of course, is financial. Like, how do you sustain yourself as an organization? Well, you get dumb rich people to like, pay you money. Ideally a pharaoh, but like, there's lots of dumb rich people in Egypt, so who cares? As long as you're financing your organization, you're happy. Okay, that's number one. Number two is you need to maintain a strict hierarchy in organization, because you need to maintain loyalty and control and command in your organization. And the way you do that is through layers, through in Freemasonry, like the 33 degrees, right? And what's interesting is that if you look at the 33 degrees, like the higher you go, the more convoluted it becomes. Okay, so like all these societies have this like overly complicated mythologies that you have to like spend years and years to learn, like Scientology. But also, what's really important is that they'll switch it up now and then. So like maybe in the in the bottom 10 layers, you're taught that a certain thing, and then the higher you go up, you realize you're taught that, it's an inversion. You believe that God is good, actually Lucifer is good, or something like that. And what that does is that it just dilutes your capacity to think independently for yourself, right? That's what all these secret societies do to new members. The first and most important priority is to dilute your individuality, dilute your capacity for self-reflection and thought. And the way they do that is by throwing all this esoteric knowledge at you, which confuses you. But what's more important is to isolate you and surround you with people who just just brainwash you every day. And that's why for Scientologists and other religions, it's very important to separate you from your family and your friends network. And in fact, you can only be only associate with other Scientologists. So I think this goes all the way back to Egypt. And this is how these secret societies work at the end of the day. Scientology is not a revelation. It's not a new concept. It's been on
bold though for the time period that it came out. PJ, it was a bit of a like, are they serious? Is this happening? Because it was so blatant and in people's faces, and exactly what you said then. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's a word Scientologist leaders use for people in your life, PJ, who may sway you from the Scientology path. It's like instigator or something like that. And the minute they're branded that, you can never associate with them again. So, for example, if you're married and you come home one day and like, hey, decided to join Scientology, and your wife's like, no, PJ, this is a terrible idea. You have to make a tough choice at that point. And when you talk about the isolation and the control, you can then see how ascending through one of these cults becomes your personality. It becomes the drive, and it defines who you are because you've been stripped away. That is, it's quite scary, because there's a lot of people in the world now compared to what there used to be. And there's a lot of way for people to access vulnerable people and to digitally market towards them to draw them in. It's the predatory level of some of these. I mean, to be honest, I'm really just having another dig at Scientology here, because they have a very predatory approach to the shutting down and control of their members. And of course, there's a lot of scary, myths and legends about, encampments where people are, kept in darkness for days and withheld food and all this kind of stuff. And then we had, of course, the missing wife of the gentleman who runs Scientology. I forget his name. So it's steeped in all of this. And then you've got the celebrities. Do you think Scientology, I think they've been halted in their plans. I think that they expected Hollywood and celebrity to endorse it a lot more. Do you think that their grand plan is failing?
Yeah. So the thing about these secret societies is that they have different mythologies, they have different eschatologies, and they have, I mean, their entire cosmology is so complicated that they can always say they succeeded even though they're failing, right? Like they have that flexibility. So you'll never find a secret society that says, we're failing, right? So I'll give you an example of like doomsday cults, right?
Okay, yeah. So
doomsday cults is like, the world's gonna end 5 years from now, like on Halloween. Okay, well, okay, that's okay. And so like you would think, okay, if the world doesn't end 5 years from now, on Halloween, then this doomsday cult would go away. In fact, a lot of members sell their houses, they give up all their friends and family, and to join this cult, because they are certain that 5 years from now on Halloween the world will end. And what happens is the world doesn't end 5 years from now on Halloween, but the members become even more convinced that they're right. So Scientology, it's not about it's not really about ensuring that they succeed or having the predictions are proven correct. All they're focused on is brainwashing their members to the point where they are completely embedded into the organization. They've lost it. They're basically like zombies now. They've lost capacity for independent thought, and that's what these secret societies are very good at doing.
100%. Now, again, I'm just keep plugging away here at Scientology, because they are, in my eyes, they're the new kids on the block. But this spans the dawn of time, and the feeling that everyone has that 2025 is going to be unveiling something. We've got Atlas 3i, I think it's called, this big thing in space. Do you think we're going to see, first of all, what's your take on Atlas, if you know anything about it? And do you think that we're going to see this being used by some societies as some forthcoming, I wouldn't say apocalyptic in the traditional sense, but global changing event, shall we say? I don't know. What's your take on that? Is it just a big rock? What do you think, PJ?
I think it's a big rock.
Think it's a big rock.
Yeah, I think it's a comet. There's nothing to suggest it is not a comet. Listen, the reality is that you have these intelligence services, these secret societies, these criminal organizations that are in cahoots with each other. They are the power elite, and they're first and foremost interested in maintaining power. And the world has reached a point where they become desperate, and as such, they will develop different strategies in order to maintain power. Okay, so one strategy is to maybe instigate a civil war. Another strategy is to launch World War III. Another strategy would be like a psyop, like a Project Bluebeam, right? Pretending
Right.
that aliens are invading the Earth, or possibly a AGI. Okay, so they have different strategies in place, and I think with Three Eye Atlas, I think I really think it's desperation on the part of the elite. I don't think they know what they're doing. I think they are sort of overwhelmed by the awakening that's happening in the world, especially after COVID, right? Because COVID marked a turning point. People say that COVID was planned, and there's all the evidence to suggest that maybe it was, but I think COVID was not planned, because look at the sort of like awakening that's happened because of COVID, right? People are now much less likely to trust government than ever before. Listen, before COVID happened, there's no way I could ever be interested in secret societies. If you talk to me about the moon landing, I'm like, like that's ridiculous, like of course it happened. And
Okay.
then they'd be like, well, then why didn't we ever go back? And I'm like, well, because we ran out of money. I would have used the center talking points
Yeah.
before COVID, but now I am open to basically every possibility. I have absolutely no faith in any government. I think that the powerful are in cahoots with each other, and I think they are capable of the most nefarious things in order to maintain power. And I also think they're a bunch of perverts. Okay, and that's because and this all happened because of COVID. So I don't think COVID was planned. I think that it blew up in their face. They took advantage of it financially, but at the cost of losing all authority and legitimacy.
Do you know what? I totally agree with you. Like, I mean, it makes perfect sense, because everything changed after the Jeremy times, as we say, because people's eyes were only focused on creating some sort of new self, whether it was the internet or doing TikToks of them knitting hats for their teapots or whatever. People started to need things to do, and it did kickstart an awakening. And are we looking at the panicked scramble of the global elites in the wake of that enlightenment? And is what we're seeing less of a well-constructed plan, but a Hail Mary panic play? Because that's what I feel. I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now. I feel like everyone is panicky. I feel like the things that are happening and the things they're putting out there, oh, there is no Epstein files. Oh, Diddy's actually not a monster. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. And the ways that the wars and things have been handled, it all just seems like mass. It seems like the decisions that a world leader would make if he was backed into a corner. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like. And it's felt like that for a long time. What do you think? What is it? There's so, I mean, I have no idea. Like, and you'll have no idea either, I imagine. But what do you feel is coming? I mean, I feel like we're at the breaking point with humanity, where we all are losing faith in the traditional systems of society. The policing in the UK, madness. The government, madness. Social services, all crumbling. And do you think that we're starting to wise up to the reasons as to why this is happening, and the evildoers who've been bleeding us dry for centuries are starting to bubble to the surface? Do you think it could be that, Professor?
Look, I'll go into detail as to what I think is happening and why people are panicking. Okay, I mean, first of all, you have an aging population. Like, the world is run by a gerontocracy, by these people in their 80s and 90s who can hardly stay awake. Okay, so Joe Biden is the classic example of this. They have no imagination, they have no energy, they just want things to stay the way they are. I mean, like they basically want to turn the world into a nursing home, and just right out to the sunset. Okay, so run by just old people who are incompetent, who are senile. I mean, like, look at Mitch McConnell. Like, I mean, I can't believe he's still around. Okay, so that's number one. we're run by a gerontocracy. Number two is the over-bureaucratization of society. So what's happened in all Western societies is the government has just grown and grown, universities have grown and grown, and there are more people sitting in the office doing nothing than people doing real work. And COVID is a classic example of this. I mean, the entire elite are just bureaucrats, right? And that's how during COVID, those 2-3 years when the entire world was locked down, they just sit at home and like the world just moved on because they didn't do any real work. Okay, so the over bureaucratization of society is a huge, huge problem. And the third thing that is really worrying is the monopolization of society. So you would just have a few corporations running everything in the world nowadays, like BlackROQ, Vanguard, and so there's no incentive for innovation. There's no possibility for innovation and energy. So what's happening is that young people are just like quitting. Okay, they just refuse to work. And the elites respond like, okay, well, if the young people don't work, let's let more immigrants. Let's let immigration, and that'll solve the problem. And it's been a dumpster fire, right? Because these immigrants are like, we're not going to do the work so that so that you can collect your pensions and you can vacation in Thailand. Like we want the welfare state as well. So you've got this massive conflict going on. So you've got the structural problems in the West created by the gerontocracy, by monopolization of resources, by over-bureaucratization of society, and whatever solution they come up with, okay, whether it's COVID lockdowns, whether it's immigration, whether it's war, just makes things worse and worse for them. And they're like, what's a problem here? Why can't we fix a problem? And the answer is, you're the problem. You guys should have retired 20 years ago and given power to a new generation. And you refuse to do so. And so the leadership of these Western countries, they're senile, they're tired, they're exhausted, and that's why we're the problems we have today.
Yeah, I think everyone can agree with the geriatric evildoers at the top of the political pyramids around the world. It is wild to think. Because I'm not being funny. At what point have you ever, other than if it's like a wise old crafter or somebody who spent their life doing something and nothing else, you would ask their advice on, right? But Joe Biden doesn't look like the sort of person I'm sitting down to go over intelligent ideas with and then take his responses seriously. And it's always made me wonder about the hand-chosen evildoers that run the world and the plausible deniability when you put someone of that age into power.
Look, Joe Biden is a classic example of desperation, right? Because in 2016, he should have been the Democratic nominee, but he was passed over for Hillary Clinton because Joe Biden doesn't really have any charisma. He doesn't have any popularity, and to be passed over and given the baton to Hillary Clinton, it says a lot. Okay, but in 2020, remember, they didn't want him to be the nominee. They wanted Pete Buttigieg or Kamala Harris or someone else, and they also imploded, and Bernie Sanders was going to take the nomination, and that's why they had to step in and rally behind Biden. And, so if you recall 2020, Bernie Sanders had won Nevada, and that's when Obama and his team stepped in and rallied behind Biden, and so South Carolina went to Biden, and then everything else flowed from then. But people forget that Biden did not have a national organization. He didn't have any volunteers. He had very little financing. So he should not have gotten the nomination, but he did because the elite were afraid of Bernie Sanders. And then he should have lost the election to Trump because Biden was not a great speaker. He had no energy. He was not very popular. But guess what happened? Okay, first thing that happened was the COVID epidemic, and so no one could campaign. Biden could just literally sit in his basement all day and let Obama and Bernie Sanders and AOC go campaign for him. That's number one. Number two is they at least spent $6 billion in 2020 to get rid of Trump. $6 billion to get rid of a guy, and they almost lost, right? And then you had suspicions of cheating, right? Because remember, that election night, Trump declared victory. And then over the next 2-3 weeks, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Michigan all turned, right? The blue wave, all this mail-in balloting from who knows where came and decided the election for Joe Biden. So, I mean, is that a sign of like an elite that knows what they're doing? It sounds more like desperation. It seems more like anxiety and fear, right? And then when Joe Biden came into office, of course, it was a complete disaster because the media had spent all this time gaslighting the public in order to defend Joe Biden. and that pissed everyone off. The economy was sinking, so all they did was change the definition of the term recession. We're not in a recession because, well, we changed the definition of the word, and then Putin invaded Ukraine, and then Biden couldn't do anything because he could barely stay awake. So it was this complete dumpster fire. And so you had COVID, you had Joe Biden's presidency, and the people just lost complete faith in the elite. And once you lose that trust, once you lose that faith, you're never getting it back. You're just not.
And of course, in this case, faith can lead to control, and that's their ultimate goal. And it seems like they were doing a really good job throughout time. And then after World War II, it seems like everyone who was in charge of keeping the great plan rolling has done a terrible job, because look at the world now. If it's much easier to keep your cattle calm and happy and grazing and producing for you, right, than to have them all in a panic and running around and freaking out and not being able to afford to live and all of this. This says to me that this is poor management, poor decision making. And you can simply say, oh, it's the politicians. We're past that, okay? We're past believing that these people in power are the only decision makers that make decisions in the world. Now, there was another thing you said there, Professor, which was BlackRock. Have you enjoyed losing sections of your life down that rabbit hole yet?
I mean, could you tell me more? I mean,
I could, yes.
I know about BlackRock, yeah,
So
but what were you referring to specifically?
There's a cult, right? A society of the Blackstone that exists on the top of Saturn, right? And this is you could Google all of this, right? There's a freaking black cube on the top of Saturn, right? And there's also a black cube in every major district of the world that does the financial control, right? That whatever that the correct term of that. There's a big black rock, and wouldn't you know it, the single biggest company in the world is called BlackRock, and it all stems back through again, like secretness, societies, cults, the occult, worship of a deity that is so antisocial, if you will, from a general perspective. Are we seeing the manifestation of centuries of evil in BlackRock? And maybe you've not researched this too much, but man, when you do, you can message me and be like, yep, that was enlightening, because it's wild. It's wild, this cube and the emphasis of it throughout these financial districts.
Yeah. I have not done that much research into BlackRock. Yeah.
BlackRock is BlackRock, I feel like, is the evil conglomerate company that is the manifestation of centuries of work and planning. Because when you look at the pie chart or the mind map of what BlackRock owns, it's defense, it's media, it's everything that a society would need under the control of suspicious individuals. But we'll move on from BlackRock, because we'll definitely do another show once you've had a wee dip into that one, Professor. Now, just going back to the notes for the interview, there was individuals that you were saying had affected, and one of them was, I think it's Sabati Zezi, is that right?
That's right, yes.
And he was a mystic who declared himself a Jewish Messiah. Can you tell us a little bit about some of these individuals from throughout the history that tie in with these organizations that have declared themselves?
Yeah. So Sabbatai Zevi is probably the most important historical figure no one's ever heard of. Okay. So let me provide some background. So the Jews have a diaspora, and with the rise of Christianity and Islam, the number of Jews in the diaspora were withering down because a lot were converting. But then with the Islamic Golden Age, you had a lot of Jews who thrived in Spain, and they were doing very well. And in fact, they became part of the elite because they were intellectuals, they were very good doctors, and also because they had these financial and trade networks across the Jewish diaspora, which helped Spain to thrive. But then with the Restoration, when Spain became Christian, these Jews began to be persecuted. In 1492, they were given a choice of either converting or be expelled from Spain. And, a lot were expelled. They went to the Ottoman Empire, but a lot did convert. And this created a crisis in the Jewish diaspora because in their religion, what's the number one commandment, right? Do not worship false idols, right? Do not worship false idols. You have to be loyal to Yahweh. You have to be loyal to God, or you'll be condemned for all of eternity. Now, the Jews believe that they are a nation, and their religion is one of blood. So what do you do when millions of your own people convert into a heresy, Christianity or Islam? And this created a huge problem in the Jewish diaspora. And in 1666, a Jewish Messiah emerged. His name is Sabtai Zevi. And he emerged because at that time, all of the Jewish diaspora was facing tremendous crises. So after Spain, a lot of Jews converged in the Polish Lutheran Commonwealth because it was very open and welcoming to Jews. But then because of war, a lot were being decimated, and a lot were being forced to convert as well. So it really felt like the end times to the Jews. And when the Jews think it's the end times, they know the Messiah is coming. So in 1666, Sabbatai Zevi, who, as you mentioned, he is a Jewish mystic in the Ottoman Empire, he declares himself the Jewish Messiah. And at that time, a third of the Jewish diaspora, and so it could be as high as 1 million Jews. Okay, that's a lot. A third of Jewish diaspora believed he was a Messiah because people were so anxious, people were so desperate, and people were willing to follow him. But then what happened? Okay, and this is what we know historically. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire thought of him as a rebel, right? Because if you're the Messiah, then who's the Sultan, right? So the Sultan said, you either convert to Islam or I will chop off your head. And Sabbatai Zevi did the unthinkable. He converted. And the Jews were like, what is this? He's our Messiah? He was supposed to help us, defeat the Ottoman Empire, lead us back to Jerusalem, and rebuild the Solomon's temple. And now he's converted to Islam. And so people were confused by all this, okay? But if you actually understand his mentality, okay, then you understand that he converted on purpose, right? Because who is Jesus? Jesus came to earth in order to sacrifice himself, in order to redeem humanity from the original sin, right? What's the original sin? Disobedience to God, right? Now we're good with God, and anyone can be now a Christian, okay? So that's Jesus' major revolution. Well, Sabbatai Zevi is doing the same thing, because what's the Jewish original sin? The Jewish original sin is conversion, right? To leave your religion behind, to worship a false idol. And so when Sabbatai Zevi, when the Messiah himself converts, it's telling all Jews in the world, God forgives you, okay? That is the Great Revolution. And so what the Sabbatai Zevi revolution is first of all, one of tremendous equality in the Jewish faith. So rather than just listen to your rabbis, we're now all equal in the Jewish faith, okay? And even women now were considered equal in the eyes of Sabbatai Zevi. So the Sabbatites are like famous for promoting radical equality between men and women, okay? So they're extremely liberal organization. So that's number one. Number two is that if you convert it, don't worry. It's not a problem. You're still Jewish, okay? It doesn't matter if you are outside a Christian. If you, in your heart, you have faith that you're Jewish, you're still good with God, okay? That's the second major intellectual breakthrough of Sabbatai Zevi. The third intellectual breakthrough is transgression is good, okay? Transgression is good because as long as you have true faith in God, then God will forgive you always. But also, much more important is that sin, transgression, will lead to the Messianic age because it will break the world faster. Okay, so he was an accelerationist. So that's the revolution of Sabbatai Zevi. Okay, these three things: a radical equality among all Jewish people. Okay, so breaking the power of the rabbis. Number two is now all Jews, regardless of the conversion, as long as they believe themselves to be Jews on the outside, they'll be saved, okay? Redemption. The third thing is faith through transgression, breaking the laws of man to show your true faith in God, accepting the process of the end of the world. Okay, so that's Zabbai Zevi. He's really important in Jewish history. If you really want to understand what's going on, you need to understand Zabbai Zevi's influence. Okay, now what's really important to understand is that when Zabbai Zevi converted, 300 families converted with him. Today they're referred to as the Dame. The Dame, I think means turncoats or whatever. So it's a derogatory term. But these are families who are loyal to Zabbai Zevi, and they understood his true mission, which was to liberate all Jews who have previously been converted or are persecuted against their will. Okay, and these Dhamma are important because if you look at Turkish history, many of the young Turks who overthrew the Ottoman Empire and established a republic, they were actually families of Dhamma. Okay, also there's rumors, okay, that the Saudi royal family, the House of Saud, are in fact Dhamma. These are crypto-Talmudic Jews who have disguised themselves as Muslim. Okay, and look, 2003, you guys can Google this. 2003, America invades Baghdad, and they were able to retrieve a lot of Iraqi intelligence files. And there's a huge file on the House of Saud, and the Iraqis were actually convinced that the House of Saud were in fact crypto-Jews, crypto-Talmudic Jews. Okay, so then the question is, wait a minute here. How is it possible for the Dhamma to assume power in Turkey as well as in Saudi Arabia? Well, the answer is the British, right? Because if you are the British intelligence service, who can you work with in the Middle East to destabilize the region, right? Well, the Serpentines are probably your best bet, because these people are well, I mean, like I'm sorry to say this, but the metaphor you can use is they're reptilians, because they have obviously, because what they appear on the outside is not what they are in the inside. Okay, and the other thing is that they are encouraged to convert all the time. So these Sabbateans then went on to England and helped found Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Right? They were fundamental in helping them to build Freemasonry. Why? Because they were able to connect Freemasonry to the Islamic world and help build up the British Empire. Okay, so they're really important to. It's really important to understand the Sabbatean movement. Okay, that's number one. Now we go on to Jacob Frank. So in the late 18th century, in the Polish Lutheran Commonwealth, Jacob Frank sees himself as the reincarnation of Zabbai Zevi, and he believes it's his mission to usher in the Messianic age, and you do that by inverting the world. Okay, so Zabbai Zevi went far. Okay, but Jacob Frank just took Zabbai Zevi's ideas and pushed them to logical conclusion. The logical conclusion that Jacob Frank made is that the world is inverted. Okay, the spirit is bad, the material is good, right? Because we've been taught that the material is bad, the spirit is good. And Jacob Frank's like, that's nonsense. What? Look, if you enjoy sex, it must be because sex is good. If you enjoy sinning, it must be because sinning is good. So in the Messianic age, everything will be inverted. And so we won't, so rather than be just pure spirit, as they teach us in Christianity, we'll be pure body, and we'll be able to participate in orgies. We'll be able to eat all the food we want. Okay? And so if you just push Jacob Frank's philosophy to the extreme, then who you should worship is Satan, okay, or who he calls Big Brother, okay? Not God. Not only that, but through some spiritual sacrifice, through some occult magic, you can always be in communion with Big Brother. And Big Brother will share with you the secrets of the universe, especially technology. Okay? Now, what we know is that Jacob Frank, after he died, there were still lots of Frankists in the world. And what's really interesting is that the Jewish diaspora, the elite, okay, the wealthy lawyers, the bankers, a lot more Frankists. Why? Because again, we talked about this, right? If you're wealthy, You want to believe in a material world. You don't want to believe in a spiritual world. If you're a billionaire and you're going to die one day, then there's a fear in you that, hey, when I die, God's going to pass judgment on me and says, hey, where'd you get that $1 billion, man? How many people did you have to kill? How many people did you have to rob? And then you're kind of screwed, right? So if you invert it and says, screw that, I'm not going to die, or I'm going to worship Satan or Lucifer instead, then you're much better off. Okay. And so that's the worldview that Sabbatai Frankis had, that the world should be material, and we should be working with Big Brother rather than with God. And we have to disguise ourselves, because whatever it takes to assume power, right? Because in this material world, power is what's good. You know that you're winning God's favor by becoming more wealthy, by becoming more powerful. Okay, and the Sabbatai Frankis, I mean, like the word we use is reptilian, right? They're lizard people. Yeah. They can convert to any religion that they want. And a lot of these Frankists convert to Catholic Church. So think about this: how the Sabbatai Frankists now are embedded in Freemasonry, and the Jesuits, in the Islamic order, in the Islamic world. They're like everywhere, and they're like this transnational organization that's just spreading their belief. And of course, after America was founded, they also came to America as well. And they are, they're an extremely influential group. And there's a lot of people who believe that the Sabbatai Frankists now control Israel. And the Sabbatai Frankists are also heavily embedded in the deep state. And a lot of these wealthy individuals that we see in the world today, they're actually Sabbatai Frankists. So that's a bit of the history of Sabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank.
Yeah, that was amazing, Professor. Like, when you have these incredibly influential individuals, that it seems lunacy that we don't know about Sabbatai Zeti, right? I don't know why that isn't something, because I feel like all I learned at high school, Professor, was 4 years of history that for some reason was just World War I, World War II. That was it, and JFK. Like, there was so much that I feel was worth knowing that we just aren't told, and that is incredible, I think. And somebody actually made a comment which was quite funny. Was this the foundation of liberalism that we've seen?
You could make that argument. Yes,
right?
You could make that argument. Yes, because Sabbatai Zevi was extremely liberal for his time. Again, he believed in equality between men and women. He look. Ultimately, at the end, you could argue that Sabbatai Zevi was the first communist, because he wanted to overturn the social order and guarantee equality to everyone. He allowed Jews to convert. And why that's important is there are a lot of policies in the Polish Lutheran Commonwealth everywhere that discriminate against Jews, and that sucks, because if you're a Jew, you have to be poor all your life, and the rabbis say to you, "Oh, that's fine, because this world doesn't matter." Well, that's fine if you're a rabbi, but if you're a peasant who doesn't have enough to eat, that kind of sucks, right? If you convert, you have more access to land, you have more access to financing, you have more access to education. So everyone wanted to convert, and Sabbatai Zevi is like, let's convert, right? So you can say that he was a populist, he was a liberal, he's a communist. That's why he was so popular.
Was I right in thinking that his interpretation was the Jewish are a people, and if they take on a different religion, it doesn't change who they are as a people, and that allows them this, alleged integration into every part of society over time?
Exactly. Yeah, and they were encouraged to change their names, they're encouraged to change their religion, whatever it took to succeed.
Dude, I like, it sounds like a pretty plausible scenario that you could see playing out over history, and it's fascinating. I mean, look,
Ron, really you can Google all this, okay? Everything I said, I just told you, is on Wikipedia, okay? Just Google Sabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank. All right, and also, like, Jacob Frank actually left us a lot of his writings, and you just go to his writings. He talks about Big Brother. He talks about the material world, how in the Mesolithic age we will have orgies, that we'll have all these feasts, we can eat pork, we can get drunk. Okay, it's all there. It's all online.
Yeah, just to show everyone, it is there, and it is all online. So anyone that wants to go and double check and do your, but it should have been this that you said, feel free to do that. And I just want to grab a couple of questions that I'd saved here for you, if that's all right, PJ, because a couple of people, and I want to get your take on this too. Is there a tip of the pyramid, meaning one grand overlord, or are we looking at multiple wealthy bloodlines building, securing shared power for decades? So yeah, is it a team effort, the global takedown, Professor?
Look, they all serve power. Okay, so if you want to take it literal and say power Satan, then they all serve Satan. Okay, but I don't think there's one particular individual, one particular group at the very top of the pyramid. I just think that their interests are aligned and they work together.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is a surge in the power of secret societies in this world. And so my reasoning is this: when you live in the modern world, society has become over bureaucratized. Okay, so the world is run by a bureaucracy, an anonymous, indifferent, inefficient bureaucracy. It's inefficient because all the departments are compartmentalized. They're siloed off. Okay, that means that secret societies are a parasite for bureaucracies because secret societies are able to coordinate secretly, right? So secret societies have three things: they're able to keep secrets, they're able to trust each other, and they're able to coordinate together. And that's why if a society becomes more bureaucratized, secret societies become more powerful.
Yeah, I think the very definition of man and what we've discussed here is mirrored in the fact that I don't think it could just be one person. It could have been at the very beginning one evil dude, but then his brother got jealous and started his little group of secret evilness, and then he had some sons, and then they fell out and they started, and it just spawns because who the hell wants to be second on the pyramid?
None of these people, man. Everyone has an ego, right?
100%, bro.
Yeah, and that's why we have so many different secret societies and different so many different religions, because everyone wants to be the Messiah. Okay,
right?
And like, but yeah, you can say they all serve power, which is Satan.
Power, money, self. What I mean, the lengths that we could go to with theories on the bloodlines and the cabals and the mystics and the lost knowledge that seems to be resurfacing now with is it a Bebli Teki that was in Turkey, right? That was the
that's right. Yeah,
that's right.
It was in Anatolia, which is now modern day Turkey. Yes.
Yeah. And that whole story just blew my mind. Like, oh my God, we found something. Let's dig it up. They get halfway and they go, oh, this sort of looks like it might ruin history. Let's just fill the hole up and then plant the forest.
Look, what we do know is they were conducting human sacrifice at Göbekli Tepe. Okay, and so what I believe happened is that because Göbekli Tepe is a temple, it's very valuable real estate, right? Because people have to make pilgrimages to this temple, and they bring like gazelles and other tributes as well. So it's the most valuable real estate in the world at that time. So these different secret societies were competing against each other for dominance over the temple, and those who lost were sacrificed to the gods. Okay, and that's why if you keep on digging, you're gonna find a lot of human skeletons in Göbekli Tepe.
But when has that ever stopped humanity from digging?
Money, man. But
money. Okay, right. Okay, I'm with you. But it seems a bit wild to fill it in and plant a forest over it. I mean, it kind of blows my mind a little bit that they didn't continue digging it up. And I think that when the people who are in power proactively try and shy away from unearthing anything historical, we've got to ask questions, because first of all, tourist revenue, first of all, okay, who doesn't want that sweet tourist revenue dollar? So it's a weird one for me, that whole story. Now, forgive me, I can't remember the name, but there was allegedly a continent next to China, and the Great Wall of China, all of the towers face into China, not facing into the other way. And someone in the side chat will tell me, and these were the people who kept the knowledge of the Egyptians, and they were apparently wiped out. What's your take on Egypt, the pyramids, lost knowledge, people being able to move blocks of coral in Florida and build castles using sound and all this? What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if you know the book by Julian James. But he wrote a book on the bicameral mind. Okay, and his argument is that the way that people's brains worked back then, in Egypt, in ancient China, are radically different from the way that our brains work today. Okay, so for James, the idea is that our minds are divided into the left hemisphere and the right hemisphere, right? And our right hemisphere, what it does is it's basically a receiver. It's a receptor for vibrations, for energy, for information from the universe. Okay, and we in the past we interpreted these vibrations to mean the gods. Okay, the gods are talking to us, or spirits are talking to us. And what our left hemisphere does is it translates these vibrations into actual conscious thoughts. Basically, using these thoughts to warp reality to fit our consciousness. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, you have the right hemisphere and the left hemisphere. The right hemisphere is the receiver. The left hemisphere is the projector. Okay, so we are receiving the universe and we're creating the universe at the same time. And so that's the way that our brains work. Unfortunately, in the modern age, what we've done is we've suppressed the right hemisphere. We've taught ourselves not to believe in our hallucinations. Okay, so when people do psychedelics or when they have near-death experiences, okay, what they're really doing is they're releasing the right hemisphere, and so they're more in contact with the universal consciousness, okay, or whatever you call it, God or whatever. So because of the way that our brains are structured, we're not able to imagine how people did things back in ancient Egypt or China or ancient Greece. So look, the pyramids are impressive, but you know what's even more impressive? The Iliad and the Odyssey by Homer. If you just read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you're just like blown away. Like, how is it possible for this one guy to be able to conceive both the Iliad and the Odyssey? And his answer would be, well, I'm not the writer. I'm just the scribe. It is the gods, who articulate their ideas to me, and I just write it down like on their behalf. Okay. That's so I think that in ancient times, people back then were much more imaginative. Their minds were much more fluid, much more dynamic. They were able to see things in their heads that would boggle us today. So, for example, if you looked at the Polynesians, they're able to navigate the Pacific by themselves, just using their brains, okay? Not computers, just they're able to process all this information, including the position of the stars, including the wind movement, including the tidal movement, including the movement of animals, everything together, just in their one, just using their brains, okay? So I just feel as though we've gotten like a lot dumber over the centuries. Is that simple?
Professor, that is exactly how I mean, not the well-spoken 5 minutes before your closing statement there, but that's exactly how I summarized it. We just outbred the smart humans, right? Like we just overpopulated themselves with us. And I think there was a comedian that made a joke one time, Professor, about the 10 super overlords of Egypt that were the almighty beings just all died, and then us, the slave race that was put into place to build everything, turned up for our wages one day, and we're like, well, I guess we're in charge now. Let's build a society, because there must have been somebody with a knowledge beyond what we can comprehend. And maybe you're right. Maybe our right side of our brain, when it's left unmessed with, it is a supercharger. We can figure things out. We can cut these laser straight lines with chisels and all of this. Is there any room in your mind for interference in our path as a species? Anything that we could summarize as otherworldly or other dimensionally or anything like that? Are you of the mindset that we've been interfered with as a species from a force out with our knowledge?
So I'm not really sure what the question is.
Okay, I can rephrase. Yeah, well, a lot of people believe that whether it's biblical, whether it's spiritual, that we have been molded, and even science can't understand how some of the chromosomes have developed over time and things like this from evolution. And I just wonder.
So you're referring to the Anunnaki, right? Or
sure. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Let's go with it. Let's stick with the narrative. Let's go with the Anunnaki.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, like, so I said all the history, and there's really nothing about human evolution that surprises me. I can explain pretty clearly how we got from like Göbekli Tepe to like Freemasonry to the 700 Frankists to today. I mean, like, I don't believe that we are just material beings. I believe that our minds are just receptor for the consciousness of the universe. So I believe in mind over matter. I believe that the universe is first and foremost conscious, and that we are the receivers for this consciousness, but we interpret it in our own particular way. So you could make the argument that yes, the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, they do exist, but more as interdimensional spirit beings
Yeah.
that have impacted us. And I believe that this world that we live in, it's a struggle between the material and the spiritual, between mind and matter, between those who want power and those who strive for love. And that's just the history of humanity. That's what I believe. And it seems as though the people in power, they've won because they have transhumanism, they got AI. We're all addicted to porn and ChatGPT and on our iPhones. But if you look at the grand arc of human history, we're extremely resilient, we're extremely imaginative, and we'll find a way out of this mess that we're in.
Yeah, that's well said. I think one couple more little points from the audience here was this was just posted just now. Do you have any books that you would recommend to the side chat that they could delve into, PJ?
I would read Iliad and Odyssey. I mean, and I would read it with understanding that Homer is being literal, okay? Because Homer talks about these gods controlling human emotions. And when I first read the Iliad and the Odyssey, I sort of discounted it, like the gods. But if you just take it literally and say, listen, our minds are literally being influenced by the gods every day, by these outside forces, then I think it's a much more powerful read. So I would read it using Julian James' framework of the bicameral mind, that our right brain, our right hemisphere, it is receiving information, instructions from the gods, and our left brain is processing it into our everyday reality. And then if you read the Iliad and the Odyssey, you're like, well, this makes a lot more sense. Like Homer was literally channeling the gods when he wrote this book.
See, it blows my mind because it kind of feels like what we're talking about here is the battle between science, material, and control over spiritual, inner knowledge and free thinking. I mean, it feels like the control over every aspect of our mind seems to be the end goal on this global plan. It's simple when it's the Freemasons or it's a society you've joined, but when it's a society you live in, that's when people's eyes, I think, are starting to open.
Look, I think science was invented for us, right? I think science was invented to brainwash us into behaving like robots, like slaves.
It was to delete the magic, Professor. If science exists, exactly right. It's to remove the blind faith from wonder.
Like people at the very top, they're occultists, man. Like I think Newton was an occultist. Mm-hmm. He was not a physicist. He was not a scientist. He was an occultist. He spent most of his time studying alchemy. He spent most of his time trying to figure out how the Bible revealed the mind of God. That's what his profession was. That's what his passion was. He was trying to figure out the spiritual aspects of the universe. And the idea that Newton was this atheist and was this rational physicist doing the scientific method, that's just a complete lie. And it's something that we use to brainwash kids today.
Wow. Damn. Honestly, I keep you just repeatedly blowing my mind throughout this entire conversation, PJ. I'm not going to lie. It's been an absolute incredible conversation. And I listen, I would love to hear what you've got coming up. What's going on with PJ? Where can people be finding what you're working on and your latest projects and things like that?
Yeah, so I have a YouTube channel called Predictive History, and so I just upload my history classes onto the channel. And what I do is I just go through the course of human history and try to figure out patterns, cause and effect. It's something I've been doing for the past hour. So if you're more interested in hearing about my historical analysis, then that's the place to go. My YouTube Predictive History channel. I also have a Substack, and my Substack is more geopolitical analysis. So my other big thing is I make geopolitical predictions. So I predict that this war in the Middle East will flare up again. Eventually, the United States will go to war with Iran. I predict that NATO will go to war with Russia in Ukraine. I make all sorts of geopolitical predictions. So if you're interested in geopolitics, then my Substack is definitely worth checking out. So those are my two recommendations.
I appreciate that. Now, listen, we just had another question come in, which is it's kind of got me thinking, do secret societies exist in Muslim nations? If so, why do we never hear about them? I thought that was quite an interesting one, but I imagine it's a lot of the same societies. It's just for some reason we're not hearing about them, right? I mean, would that be the answer, or what do you think?
I would have to assume so.
Yeah.
You know, the Sufis are a secret society. They, you know, and they have a long tradition. Why don't we hear about them? Yeah, it just sort of boggles my mind as well.
Right.
Yeah,
They've mastered the art of just keeping stum. I think that's
well,
what it
I mean, remember the House of Saud. The House of Saud is a creation of the Anglo-American Empire, and the House of Saud sponsors the Wahhabi movement, the like Wahhabism, okay, which is this fanatical Islamic movement. You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if the House of Saud and the Wahhabis make an effort to root out Islamic secret societies.
Listen, Professor, I can't thank you enough for your time today. It has just been unbelievable. And I want to apologize. I did put a spelling mistake in the original thumbnail. I fixed it and then YouTube swapped it back again. It's been a whole shenanigans. But I would love for you to come back and expand on some of these things once my brain's kind of processed it all, because it's a wealth of knowledge, and just learning about these individuals, these keystone individuals in religious faiths that I would never have known about until today. And it really puts in perspective. Do you know what? I really think it was that person's statement of the birth of liberalism that really shows you how a mindset can change when they're wanting to really expand. And by holding in your heart what you feel as, in this instance, as being Jewish, allowing yourself to be a Jewish individual, but having our faith and spread that is a fascinating one. It really is. It really is.
Yeah. So, you know, there's this Russian philosopher, Alexander Dugin.
Okay.
And he's very good. He's very interesting to listen to, but he believes that liberalism is the Antichrist. Like he literally says it's like Western civilization, liberalism, capitalism, feminism. It's all the Antichrist. It was designed to erode the human spirit and to corrupt the human soul. So, you know, I mean, like, he's definitely worth checking out.
Interesting. I personally believe everything in moderation, people. Okay, everything balance is key. Okay, balance is key. And like Professor PJ, thank you so much. This has just been awesome. And listen, I already can't wait to get you back on and delve into some other points. I think what I'll do is I'll maybe get Shaun to put up a poll for everybody, and we'll suggest some areas, and we'll get the side chat to tell us which way they want to take this, because I'm sure you've got a lot more to tell, and I cannot wait to hear it, Professor. And thank you so much for your time, the time difference, everything. You've been so accommodating, and I just want to say thank you so much. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's been a lot of fun. So let's do this again sometime.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Oh, right at the end there, hang on a second. What is the influence of secret societies on the history of colonization in Africa and Americas? And any insight on John Cecil Rhodes and the Round Table? Right at the end there, Professor. So I do apologize.
Well, yeah, I mean, like that's pretty well known. I mean, Cecil Rhodes and the Round Table is a Promo Society. Yeah, no, it's all secret society, and it's all meant to spread the Anglo-American Empire around the world. Well, the Rhodes Scholarship, right? Well, what is that? So yeah.
Well, listen, I hope that answers that for you. And again, Professor, thank you so much. Thank you very much to the mod team. Thank you very much to all of your followers that have been in the side chat and just been a lovely addition to the channel. So you will find all of Professor's links down in the description. Please make sure you subscribe to the Shaun Attwood channel, and we'll see you again very soon. And once again, Professor, thank you so much, and we look forward to having you back. Thank you.
Thank you.